The strange message: it was a cold night. The wind outside was strong, and the trees were shaking. Inside his small apartment, David was sitting alone. He had just finished his dinner, some leftover noodles and tea. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of his old TV. It was playing some late-night movie, but he wasn't really watching. His eyes were tired, and his mind felt heavy. David was an ordinary man. He lived alone, worked from home, and had no family nearby. His life was simple, maybe even boring. But that night, something strange happened. Something that would change his life forever. Suddenly, the TV screen started to flicker. The image broke into lines and static. David frowned and picked up the remote. He pressed the buttons, but nothing worked. The screen turned black for a moment. Then, ... a face appeared. It was not a normal face. The skin was pale blue, the eyes large and glowing. The woman looked scared. Behind her, there was a dark room filled with strange lights and shapes. She was holding a small child in her arms. The child's eyes also glowed, just like hers. David dropped the remote. He couldn't move. He just stared at the screen. The woman spoke. Her voice was soft but clear. "If you're hearing this, please listen. This is not a dream. This is not a mistake." The child looked at the screen, then back at the woman. She hugged him tightly. "This boy," she said, her voice shaking, "he is not just mine. He is yours too." David's heart stopped. What was she talking about? The woman continued, her eyes full of emotion. "Years ago, you were chosen. You were taken. They erased your memory. But this child, ... he is yours. Your blood runs in his veins." David stood up slowly. "What is this?" he whispered. The woman looked directly into the camera. "They will come for him. They will come for you. You must be ready." Then, the screen turned to static again. The image was gone. David stood in silence. His hands were shaking. His mind was spinning. He looked around the room. Everything seemed normal again. The TV returned to the movie, as if nothing had happened. He sat down slowly. "This is crazy," he said to himself. "Maybe I'm just tired." But deep inside, something felt different. Something felt real. He could still see the woman's face in his mind. And the child had his eyes. David couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the message. Was it a dream, a hack, a prank, or was it something else? The next morning, he checked his TV. Nothing strange. He checked the cables, the remote, the power. Everything was fine. He even looked online to see if someone else saw the same thing. But there was nothing. He tried to forget. He went to work. He answered emails. He ate lunch. But the image of the alien woman and the child wouldn't leave his mind. That night, he sat again in front of the TV. He waited. Nothing happened. He turned it off and stood up. But just as he was about to go to bed, the lights in the room blinked. The TV turned on by itself. Static filled the screen. David stepped back. Then again her face appeared. But this time, she was crying. "Please," she said. "Time is short. They're coming. You must find me before they do." The child reached toward the screen, as if he could see David. "He needs you," she whispered. "You are his only hope." And then just like that, the message was gone. The screen went black. David stood frozen. He felt something strange in his chest. Not fear, but something else. A connection. Like a memory he couldn't remember. Was she? What did she mean, chosen? What happened to him years ago? And most of all, was the child really his? He sat down slowly and whispered to himself, "What if it's true?" The night grew darker outside. A cold wind blew against the windows. And somewhere, far away, something was watching. The encounter restarted with the sound of knocking. But not on the door, on the window. David woke up suddenly. His heart was racing. He looked at the clock. 3:14 a.m. The room was dark, except for the soft glow from the streetlight outside. He heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, he was sure. It was coming from the window. He lived on the 3rd floor. No balcony, no ledge, nothing. Slowly he got out of bed and moved toward the sound. His fingers pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Just the night. But then his eyes caught something. A shape. A figure standing still in the shadows of the alley below. Tall, thin, wrapped in a long silver cloak that shimmered like water. The head slowly tilted upward. 2 glowing eyes met his. David stepped back. He didn't know why, but he wasn't afraid. Not yet. The next morning was quiet, but his thoughts were loud. He couldn't stop thinking about the message. The woman. The child. And now the figure from last night. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe he was losing his mind. But that theory shattered when he found the envelope. It was lying just outside his front door. No name. No address. Just a single piece of smooth, black paper inside. Written in silver ink. You are not crazy. Meet me tonight. The child is in danger. 11 p.m. The old train station. David stared at the note. His fingers trembled. He almost threw it away. Almost, but he didn't. 11:05 p.m. The old train station. David waited in silence. The place had been closed for years. Broken glass on the floor. Rusty tracks. Dead silence. Then he heard footsteps. Soft, careful. He turned. A figure walked toward him from the shadows. It was her. The woman from the message. But now she wasn't a screen glitch or a strange dream. She was real. Her skin glowed softly, blue and silver. Her eyes were bright, but tired. She moved with grace, almost like she was floating. David's voice cracked. Who are you? She stopped a few feet away. Her voice was calm. My name is Salith. I come from a world called Arian. He laughed nervously. You're joking, right? She shook her head. You were taken 10 Earth years ago. By my people. You were part of an experiment. You were chosen because your DNA is special. David took a step back. This is insane. She pulled out a small device. It glowed and showed an image. David lying in a strange white room. Wires on his head. Another image. Salith beside him, placing her hand on his chest. Then the child appeared, laughing, glowing. David stared in shock. This isn't a prank, he whispered. No, she said softly. The child is yours. His name is Kale. He has your strength, your curiosity, and ... more. Why now? David asked. Why are you telling me this? Salith looked around, nervous. Because others are coming. They want the child. They want your blood. They know what you are. David frowned. What am I? She stepped closer. You are the bridge. Between two species. Between war ... and peace. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed in the distance. A red beam of light shot through the wall. They found us, Salith said quickly. We must go. Now. She grabbed his hand. Her skin felt warm, almost electric. In seconds, a silver pod appeared from behind the ruins. The door opened with a soft hiss. David hesitated. Where are we going? To Kale, she said. To your son? As the door closed behind them, the pod rose into the night sky. Below them, shadows moved. Strange figures stepped into the station. But they were too late. David looked out the window as the city lights disappeared beneath them. His heart beat faster. He didn't know where he was going. But one thing was clear, this was real, and it had only just begun. Hidden memories. He was drowning. But not in water. David was drowning in light. Blinding white light surrounded him. It felt warm at first, like sunlight. Then it turned hot. Burning. His skin screamed. His mind shook. He tried to run, but his legs didn't move. He tried to shout, but no sound came out. All he could do was fall deeper and deeper into the light. And then he woke up. David sat up fast, gasping for air. Sweat dripped from his face. He was inside a smooth, round room. Everything glowed softly, like moonlight. There were no windows, no doors, just curved white walls that hummed like they were alive. Salith stood nearby, looking at him with gentle eyes. You remember something, she said. It wasn't a question. David wiped his face. A dream, I think, or maybe a memory. Salith walked toward him and placed her hand on a small silver panel. The wall behind her shimmered and became clear like glass. Outside was a view of stars. Endless and beautiful. We're no longer on Earth, she said quietly. Not for now. David stood up slowly. Where are we? In between, she said. This place doesn't exist on any map. Safe. For now. He looked at her, confused. Why do I remember lights? Pain. Salith paused. Because they're coming back. The memories. They were hidden, locked deep inside your mind. But your body remembers. And soon, your mind will too. David sat back down. Why me? She took a deep breath. Because you are human, and that is rare. David raised an eyebrow. There are 8 billion of us. She smiled sadly. Yes, but not all of you can bond with alien DNA. Not all of you can survive the cross. He didn't understand. Salith touched another panel. A soft hum filled the room. Suddenly, a hologram appeared in front of him. It showed a younger David, unconscious. Lying on a table, tall, strange creatures stood around him. Machines buzzed. One of the creatures, a scientist, maybe spoke in a language David didn't know. A needle entered his arm. Blue liquid flowed inside. Then darkness. David stared at the image. That's real. She nodded. You were part of Project Helix, a secret mission. Earth's governments gave us permission. Quietly, secretly, they never told you. And you were part of this? He asked. At first, yes, she said. But then I met you. David looked confused. I was unconscious. Your body was, she said softly. But your mind spoke. You weren't like the others. You felt everything, even through the pain. He looked away. She stepped closer. I didn't mean to care. But I did. We spent weeks together. I tried to protect you. David shook his head. I don't remember any of it. You will, she said. The blocks in your mind are breaking. Soon, you'll know everything. Suddenly, the lights in the room turned red. A deep voice echoed from the ceiling. Proximity breach detected. Incoming object, fast approach. Salif turned to the window. A small dark ship was flying toward them. Fast, too fast. David stood up. What is that? Her face turned serious. Not a ship, a hunter. Before he could ask more, the room shook violently. Alarms rang. Salif grabbed David's hand. We must leave. But I don't remember enough, he shouted. She turned to him. Then, I'll show you. She pressed her palm to David's forehead. Her eyes glowed white. In a second, memories flooded back. A cold lab, screaming, running through dark halls. Bright lights above, a baby, glowing, crying in his arms. Salif smiling through tears. Then darkness again. David stumbled back, holding his head. I saw him. The child. Kale. She nodded. Yes, your son. Our son. Another explosion rocked the ship. Panels sparked. The window cracked. David's eyes hardened. No more running. He looked at the door. Take me to him now. Salith pressed a command. A small escape pod opened nearby. Get in, she said. I'll cover us. But what about? She gave him a long look. You came this far. You found the truth. Now go find him. He's waiting. David stepped into the pod. The door closed. As the pod launched into the stars, he looked back one last time. Salith stood tall as the room shook. Around her, staring into the face of the hunter's ship, David whispered to himself, I remember now. The child was drawing planets. But he had never seen one. Inside a quiet silver room, a small boy sat alone. His hand moved quickly across a glowing screen, sketching circles, stars, moons. Each one perfect, each one different, each one real. But he had never left this place. His name was Kale. He was 7 Earth years old. His skin glowed faintly in the dark. His eyes were too wise for his age, and deep inside him, a fire slept, something no one could fully understand. Behind him, a voice spoke. You draw the stars again. Kale turned. A tall alien woman stood there, sharp armor, no smile. She watched him like a scientist watches a puzzle. He nodded. They feel familiar. She said nothing, just turned and left. The door locked behind her. Kale looked back at his drawings. One of them, he didn't remember drawing. It was a face. A man's face. Human. With kind eyes. He touched it softly. You're close now, aren't you? He whispered. Far away. A pod moved through silent space. Inside, David stared at the stars. His hand still shook from the escape. His mind buzzed with new memories. Some beautiful, some terrifying, and one image clearer than all burned inside him. The boy. Kale. His son. The pod beeped softly. Destination. Enclave 7. Lifeform detected. Match. 89%. Preparing descent. David gripped the sides of the seat. I'm coming, kid, he whispered. The pod landed quietly, hidden beneath old ruins. Dust rose. Shadows watched. But no alarms rang. David stepped out slowly, every sense alert. The air here felt strange, thin, electric. He moved carefully through the empty halls. Strange lights blinked. Doors whispered open and closed. Then, a sound. Laughter. Small. Pure. He followed it like a thread. At the end of a long corridor, found the room there. Sitting cross-legged on the floor was Kale, alone, drawing stars. David stopped in the doorway. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Kale looked up. Their eyes met. And everything else disappeared. For a moment, the stars stood still. Kale stood up slowly. I know you, he said. David's voice cracked. Yeah, I think I know you too. Cale tilted his head. You were in my dreams. David smiled, trying not to cry. You've been in mine too. They moved closer. Not fast. Like planets drawn into the same orbit. A slow, perfect pull. David knelt. I'm your. Cale nodded. I know. You're my father. David reached out. His hand shook. Cale placed his small hand into it. The glow from the boy's skin passed into David's fingers. A soft pulse. A connection. David closed his eyes. It felt like home. But peace didn't last long. Alarms began to scream. The door behind them locked with a slam. A voice echoed through the room. Unauthorized presence detected. Genetic match confirmed. Begin containment. Cale looked up, afraid. They're coming. David stood, ready. Then we go. Now. But Cale held up his hand. Wait. He closed his eyes. Took a breath. And the lights around them exploded. Glass shattered. Walls cracked. The alarm stopped. Cale opened his eyes. They were glowing white. David stared. You did that. Cale looked down. I don't know how. It just happens. David nodded. Let's make sure it keeps happening on our side. They ran. Through fire. Through metal. Through chaos. And behind them. Something followed. Not a guard. Not a machine. A creature. Tall. Silent. Wrapped in black. No face. Just empty. Hungry eyes. David turned a corner and froze. The path was blocked. The creature was getting closer. Cale stepped forward. Don't, David said. You're just a kid. Cale looked up at him. I'm not just anything. He raised both hands. Light poured out. The creature screamed a sound like metal, bending and thunder crashing at once. And then it was gone. Only silence remained. David stood, stunned. Cale fell into his arms, breathing hard. I can't control it for long, he whispered. David held him tight. You don't have to. You've got me now. Cale looked up. They said you'd never come. I almost didn't, David said. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. From deep within the station, another alarm rang. A different tone. This one was bigger. They weren't alone anymore. But now, father and son stood together, and together, they were dangerous. The secret war. Long before Earth had cities, a war had already begun. Not with bullets, not with fire, but with genes. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, in a dark, cold place that had no name, ancient machines whispered a message. The human has awakened. David stood at the edge of a broken cliff. Below him stretched an alien desert, purple sand, black sun, and skies that cracked like glass. Cale stood beside him, silent. His small hand gripped David's tightly. Behind them, the old station was gone, destroyed in the escape. But Salith's voice still echoed in David's mind. You are the bridge, but you are also the threat. He didn't know what that meant. Not yet. But he was about to find out. They walked through the ruins of a lost world. The place looked like it was once beautiful. Now it was dust and metal. Bones dot in the distance. Strange machines moved, slow, tall, and watching. Cale pointed toward a glowing doorway in the rocks. This way, he said. She left something for you. Inside the cave, the air shimmered. At the center was a stone platform. And floating above it, a crystal pulsing softly. David stepped closer. The crystal reacted to his presence. A deep hum began, and images exploded into the air. A galaxy. Map. Planets marked in red. Symbols. Equations. DNA strands. Then, faces. Humans. Thousands. Maybe millions. All stored like data. These are the others, Cale whispered. The forgotten ones. David stared. What is this? A voice answered, one he hadn't heard in a long time. It was Salith. The crystal played a recording of her voice, calm and full of regret. If you're hearing this, it means you found him. And it means it's too late to hide. There is a war no one on Earth knows about. A secret war fought not with armies, but with bloodlines. Your kind, humans, are more than they seem. Long ago, your DNA was considered weak. But something changed. Something ancient woke inside humanity. Emotion, willpower, resistance. No machine could copy it. No alien could control it. You, David, are the proof. You survived the Helix project. You fathered the child that even they fear. Now they want him. Or they want him dead. Because the boy is not just powerful. He is human enough to be unstoppable. The message ended. David stood frozen. So, that was it. They didn't want Cale because he was part alien. They feared him because he was still part human. Cale looked up. They call me a weapon. David shook his head. You're a kid. You're my kid. Kale smiled, weakly. Maybe. I'm both. Suddenly, the cave shook. A large door opened behind them. 3 tall figures stepped in. Not guards. Not hunters. Rebels. Alien fighters. In dark cloaks, carrying strange tech. But they didn't attack. One of them, a woman with gold markings on her face, stepped forward. You're the human, she said. David nodded. Yeah, I'm the problem, right? She didn't smile. No, you're the answer. They took David and Kale to a hidden camp under the desert. There, David saw other hybrids. Children like Kale. Some older, some sick, some powerful. But none of them had a father. None of them had survived this long. You're the first, the rebel leader said. The first father who came back. David looked at the children. Why me? Because your mind was strong enough to resist the memory wipe. Your body accepted the alien DNA, but kept its soul. David sat down, tired. So what now? She leaned in. Now, we fight back. That night, Kale sat under the cracked sky, staring at the stars he once only dreamed about. David joined him. You scared? He asked. Kale nodded. A little. They say I could burn planets. David looked at him. Yeah, well, I say we just light the way. Kale smiled. Then, in the far sky, lights appeared. Dozens of ships. The enemy had arrived. David stood up. Kale reached for his hand. They didn't speak. They didn't need to, because war had found them. But this time, humanity was ready. The betrayal. He found her alive. That was the first betrayal. David stood at the edge of the rebel base's dark hangar, frozen. Salith stepped out of the enemy's ship, not as a prisoner, but as a guest. Her hands weren't tied. Her eyes weren't scared. She walked like she belonged there. And the worst part, she looked right at him, and didn't look surprised. Minutes later, they sat face to face in a cold metal room. No guards, no Kale, just them. David's voice was a whisper, but sharp. You lied to me. Salith didn't deny it. She sat still, hands folded, calm. I never said. I told you everything. David's fist hit the table. You said we were running from them. You said they wanted Kale dead. They do, she replied. Some of them. He leaned closer. And what about you? Which side are you on? Her silence was louder than any answer. 2 hours earlier, Kale had been training with the other hybrid children. His powers were growing. His control was not. One moment, he was lifting rocks. The next, they were flying across the camp like missiles. But it wasn't anger this time. It was fear. He had felt something shift in the galaxy. Someone close, he whispered. Someone not telling the truth. Back in the room, David paced like a storm. You used me. No, Salith said. I chose you. That's not better. She stewed. You think this is simple? Do you know how many lives are on the line? Thousands? Maybe millions? Your kind wasn't supposed to survive the Helix project. And yet, here I am. She nodded. Yes, here you are. The only one who came back with memories. The only one who didn't go insane. That makes you dangerous. David's voice dropped. So all this, the messages, the escape, the child, was part of the plan. She hesitated. That part, she whispered, was real. In the rebel war room, Kale stood in front of the galaxy map. His eyes were glowing. His voice calm. She still feels like my mother, he said to the rebel leader. But something's broken. I can feel it. The leader placed a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes people break for reasons they think are right. Kale looked up. Is that what betrayal is? No, the leader said. Betrayal is when someone forgets who they used to be. David watched Salith carefully. Why come back now? He asked. She sighed. Because the war is no longer just about you or Kale. It's about what happens next. The High Council wants to use Kale as a weapon. David's eyes narrowed. And you? What do you want? Her voice cracked for the first time. I wanted peace. But you helped them, he said. I tried to stop them. But you didn't. Single quotes T. Double quotes. Silence. Then David spoke softly. You told me I was the bridge. But maybe I'm the wall. Salith looked at him with real pain. You were never meant to, remember? But you did. And now, you're the only one who can stop them. Then help me, he said. She stepped back. I already have. Kale's powers are waking because of you, not because of me. He shook his head. No, you don't. Get to step away now. You don't trust me. I did. That's why this hurts. She looked down. Kale still believes you, he said. But he's a child. I'm not. Outside, rebel sirens began to scream. The enemy ships had changed direction. They weren't heading for Earth, they were heading for the rebel base. David burst out of the room. Kale was already there, waiting. She's not what you think, David said. Kale nodded slowly. I know. David paused. You do. Kale looked up. I felt it, but I also felt something else. David frowned. What? Kale whispered. She still loves us, even if she's lost. As explosions shook the ground, David looked out at the sky. I don't know what's coming, he said. Kale held his hand. I do. David turned. What? The boy's voice was steady. War, but not like before. This time, we fight for Earth. And behind them, Salif stood alone, watching the sky burn. Tears ran down her glowing cheeks. Not for the galaxy, but for the two people she never meant to love, and was now powerless to protect. The final stand. The war began with silence. Not with fire, not with screams. Just a quiet, strange silence. Like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. From Earth's orbit to the far moons of Arion, the stars dimmed. And in that silence, humanity stood up. David stood on the deck of the rebel flagship. Earth floated below, glowing blue and calm, unaware of what was coming. Beside him, Kale stared at the planet with wide eyes. I've never been there, the boy whispered. But it feels like home. David smiled softly. It is, and we're going to make sure it stays safe. Behind them, rebel soldiers, Zalian, and human allies, prepared for the coming wave. Ships hummed, weapons charged, and orders were shouted in dozens of languages. A single message played through every ship. They think we are broken. They think we are divided. But today, we show them who we are. In the distance, the enemy fleet appeared. Dark, countless, perfect in shape. Their ships didn't move, they glided. Cold, silent, like machines built to erase life itself. At the center, the High Council's command vessel pulsed, like a living heart, ancient, massive, and full of weapons that could shatter moons. But they had one weakness. They didn't believe humans could matter. In the war chamber, Kale stood before the rebel leaders. I'm the reason they're coming, he said. Let me be the reason they leave. The old general shook his head. You're just a child. Kale raised one hand. The lights flickered. The floor cracked, and a satellite orbiting the ship realigned itself. Pulled by his will, Kale opened his eyes. I'm not just anything. David stepped forward. I'll go with him. The general looked at them both, then nodded. Then go. And make them see. The rebel fleet moved like fire, through ice. Screams filled comes fighters danced between ships like insects. Explosions painted the sky in red and white. And through it all, David and Kale boarded the enemy command ship. Not with stealth, but with purpose. Inside the enemy ship, it was cold and alive. The walls breathed. The floor pulsed. Kale walked ahead, glowing with quiet energy. David followed, holding a pulse rifle but knowing it wouldn't matter. Not here. At the center chamber, the High Council waited. Tall, faceless beings. Clones of the same mind, voices like broken glass. You bring the hybrid child to us. They spoke as one. You bring the weapon. David stepped forward. No, I bring your warning. The council tilted their heads. Human, you are nothing. Kale raised his eyes. You made me. You feared me, but you never understood me. The ship trembled. Your machines, your minds, they don't feel love, or pain, or hope. The walls cracked. You tried to make me a tool, but he made me a son. Kale pointed to David. Light from his hand shot into the room, pure white, alive. The council screamed. Their forms cracked, glitched, broke. Kale stood tall. I'm not a weapon. I'm proof. The enemy ship began to collapse. David grabbed Kale's hand. Time to go. Outside, the rebel fleet watched as the massive vessel imploded silently, swallowed by its own failed design. And then, the enemy ships stopped. No signals. No movement. They powered down, one by one. The war was over. Back on Earth, months later, Kale stood in the middle of a park, watching children run. Real children, no powers, just joy. David sat on a bench, tired but smiling. A woman approached quietly. Saelith. No longer armored, no longer distant. She stood beside them, watching her son. He's free now, she said. David nodded. We all are. She turned to him. You were never meant to be the key. He smiled. That's the thing about humans. We don't follow plans. We break them. Kale laughed in the distance, chasing butterflies. Above the stars shone again. Unwatched, unthreatened, free final line. Narration, voiceover ending style. They said humanity was weak, that we were soft, emotional, broken. But they forgot one thing, ... We love harder, we fight smarter. And when it matters most, we don't run, we rise.